was a picture of Jesus lying in his mother's arms. Shuttered windows, cars humming on the street below. A fountain throbbed in the lobby of the Grand Hotel. We checked into room 33. Well. You were a runaway flake of snow. You were skinny and white as a wafer, yeah, I know. Sitting on the edge of the bed, clicking your shoes, I slid my little songs out from under you. And we all rose from our wonder. We would never admit defeat, and we leaned out of the window as the rain fell on the street, on the street. They were just a sigh released from a dying star. They were runaway flakes of snow, and yeah, I know. They annexed your insides in a late night raid. We sent down for drinks and something to eat. The cars humming in the rain in the street below. A fountain throbs in the lobby of the Grand Hotel. The spurting font of creativity, yeah, I know. Your head in a pool of your own streaming hair, and Jesus lying in his mother's arms. Just so, all up on the wall, just so. And we all rose up from our wonder. We'll never admit defeat, and we leaned out of the window and watched the horses
evening, everyone, and welcome to Emerging from the Cave, Anthropos Epitaphios. This is our Holy Saturday Vigil. We are trying some new technology on our live streaming tonight, so hopefully that works for all of you folks. We're also going to be trying to find the blend of hospitality where it works for people who are in person, whereas on the other hand, other people are streaming. So streaming folks, we're sorry. At the interactive parts, we won't be able to bring your conversations in easily, if at all. We would if we could. And for folks that are here live, our compromise with this service is there is a lot of bum time for you. The people who are at home can get up and wander around and go here and there, and the way the service is laid out, there aren't the normal times to stand up and sing or stand up and pray or go forward for communion like there are. And so we're just going to invite you as you need, get up, make your way to the hospitality table, and so on, because it's going to be a fair bit of time straight sitting for you. A few words about what we're doing tonight. It's a Holy Saturday Vigil, so the idea is that this will be a relaxing, quiet, gentle time. We're not here to entertain you. We're here to give you some space to reflect, to dial down deep. Holy Saturday is an extraordinary day within the church calendar that is unfortunately badly neglected. Holy Saturday was brought into a whole new context for me by a theologian named Alan E. Lewis with this book, Between Cross and Resurrection, A Theology of Holy Saturday. And he has two of the main concepts that will allow us to flow through this night. And the first main concept is we do know how the story ends. And so in some ways, and he uses the metaphor, it's like watching reruns of TV shows we've seen before. And so it's just a simple acknowledgement of that fact that we are here, we do know where it's going, but we're also seeking to relive the moment. The more critical and more helpful or more profound point he makes is that Holy Saturday is the borderlands between Good Friday and Easter Sunday. And so from Holy Saturday, we can look back at Friday, we can look forward to Sunday. Each is given more import. Each is given a context by the other, which is held together by Holy Saturday, which also has its own tremendous and vital importance as we wrestle with the time when God was dead in the tomb, and dial in on that. Our guides tonight are going to be a combination of lay people from St. Paul's who are doing a combination of scripture readings, occasional portions from Alan Lewis's book, and then some imaginative and creative writings that have come out of our own community. The other primary guide is Nick Cave. Nick Cave is an Australian musician who's in his early 60s. Nick's 15-year-old son died very tragically about 5 years ago. And Nick's album Ghosteen was his musical processing of his son's death. And so we took the album Ghosteen, figured out which songs fit which sentiments or which aspects of the liturgy, resequenced it, and then left out the others. And so our process will be, we will engage with a reading and then have a poetic exploration of the meaning or the sentiment of that through Nick Cave, then another reading, and then another poetic exploration. If you are at home, if you can, hook onto a good-sized screen and good-sized speakers, that will help. For those of us here, we'll be watching on the screen, of course. Our overall, or other guide, who's not really a guide, but it's a bit of a playful thing, Plato's metaphor of the cave. And John, could you bring up the picture of the cave? So Plato has a metaphor of the cave where this is his description of processing life. And if you can see the little folks sitting in front of the wall, that's you and I. And what we see of reality are shadows cast on a wall, and then you can see that there's a fire behind, and then there are beings that are carrying images on sticks. The images cast the shadows, and that's all that we seem to know of reality. And then Plato said the philosopher is the one who finds his way out of the cave to the surface, into the light, and then he comes back and he leads people out of the cave in their turn. Fascinatingly enough, Plato also predicted that such a philosopher would be killed for his teachings. In our liturgy, we're saying Jesus is the philosopher, that the way out of the cave is through the tomb. So the cave is not the tomb, the exit from the cave is the tomb. And so that's an overlay on this. And then the other overlay is, and now if we have the picture of the epitaphios, John. And epitaphios is a Christian icon which has a picture of the crucified Christ on it. And it's usually an embroidered fabric or a tapestry type fabric. And in the Orthodox churches and some Catholic churches, they lay this over the altar on Easter Sunday, and then it stays on the altar through all of Easter season. It's also used for some significant liturgical movements on Easter Sunday where it's paraded into the church and things of that nature. So the other theme that we're exploring tonight is how we, in our turn, being humans, follow the truly human one. And so it's exploration of how we follow him out of the cave through the tomb. So the liturgy will take us through a combination of reflections on what that Saturday would have been like for the first people. We'll start off with a quick reprise of Good Friday, just to bring us into the space with the 7 last words of Christ. Then we will work our way through some of the emotions, the feelings, and then into new realizations of how we go on from there. So with that, I have to see what we do next, because I can't remember. Right, okay, so this is our invitation to worship. Nick Cave's voice sometimes will be speaking as Christ to us, sometimes will be speaking as a friend to us, sometimes will be speaking to us as our own voice, speaking to ourselves. So just be flexible in terms of how his poetry comes to you. And now we'll open our service with the call to worship.
Beside you, I am beside you, I am beside you, I am beside you. Look for me. Look for me. I am beside you. Look for me. I try to forget. beside you. Look for me. Look for me. I think they've gathered here for me. I am within you. You are within me. I am beside you. You are beside me. I think they're singing to be free. I think they're singing to be free. I think my friends have gathered here for me. I think they've gathered here for me. To be beside me. Look for me. Look for me. I am beside you. You are beside me. You are beside me.
Torn, a poem by Mark Paulette. Torn, this veil, no barrier now, between my father and his children. Selah. The walls are wet, dank and smelly, with death's sweat. I used to jump from star to star, not sitting between these walls stark. But for you, I'll endure the dark. Selah. I started life on this earth in a cave like this that had a manger. Now this, a sepulchre. Still, it is quiet. After the pain and the screams, the scorns and thorns of yesterday, rest is what I need. Selah. Rest with me. Stop and listen to God's whisper. In the rhythm of this week, this is the vesper of the quiet. And let's say together, the world is too tired from waiting, too empty from crying, too lost from wandering, too bereft for comfort, too angry for peace, too lonely for hope. We pray for all those who feel as though they are living permanently in Easter Saturday. If there were any time when the world needed your spirit, this is it. We will stop, we will listen to God's whisper in the rhythm of this week, in this vesper of the quiet.
Part 2, Loss. Scripture reading from Matthew chapter 27, verses 50 through 61. But Jesus, again crying out loudly, breathed his last. At that moment, the temple curtain was ripped in two, top to bottom. There was an earthquake, and rocks were split in pieces. What's more, tombs were opened up, and many bodies of believers asleep in their graves were raised. After Jesus' resurrection, they left the tombs, entered the holy city, and appeared to many. The captain of the guard and those with him, when they saw the earthquake and everything else that had happened, they were scared to death. They said, "This has to be the Son of God." There was also quite a few women watching from a distance, women who had followed Jesus from Galilee in order to serve him. Among them were Mary Magdalene, Mary, the mother of James and Joseph, and the mother of the Zebedee brothers. Late in the afternoon, a wealthy man from Arimathea, a disciple of Jesus, arrived. His name was Joseph. He went to Pilate and asked for Jesus' body. Pilate granted his request. Joseph took the body and wrapped it in clean linens, put it in his own tomb, a new tomb, only recently cut into the rock, and rolled a large stone across the entrance. Then he went off. But Mary Magdalene and the other Mary stayed, sitting in plain view of the tomb.
Talked it round and round again, then drove the car down to the sea, the sea. We sat in the car park for an hour or two. I love my baby and my loves me, loves me. I love my baby and my baby loves me. It's vast and wild, and it's deep as the sea, the sea. And as the sun sinks into the water, no, 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 I love my baby, and my baby loves me, loves me.
3. Disorientation. Jesus was dead and buried. Finished. Every lingering possibility that he was who he claimed to and had been acclaimed to be had finally been extinguished, brutally and decisively. Conviction for blasphemy had proven him to be anything but God's righteous one. At the same time, execution as a rebel at the whim of an empire, any messianic aspirations. Then the lonely God-forsakenness of his dying and the hellish godlessness of his burial combined to confirm one of two unthinkable conclusions. Either that he had never been God's love and power enfleshed, or still, that this had been God's last best effort against the tyrants, and that sin's hatred and death had proved impregnable against the fragile flower of grace incarnate. We'll read together the response on the next slide. If there were any time the world needed your spirit, this is it. We wait here, perhaps skeptical, perhaps angry, perhaps desperate, perhaps lonely, perhaps anxious, perhaps doubting, perhaps resigned. All we know of God is stripped away, crucified, and we wait.
Jesus lying in his mother's arms is a photon released from a dying star. We move through the forest at night. The sky is full of momentary light, and everything we need is just. We are photons released from a dying star. We are fireflies a child is trapped in a jar. And everything is distant as the stars. I am here and you are where you are. We have lived a long time here in the forest. And we lie beneath the heaps of leaves. We are partial to this partial light, sleep and fear our dreams. There is no order here and nothing can be planned. We are fireflies trapped in a little boy's hand. And everything is as distant as the stars. And I am here and you are where you are. We lie among our atoms, and I speak to you of things and hope sometimes that maybe you will understand. There is no order here, and there is no middle ground. And nothing can be predicted, and nothing can be planned. A star is just a memory of a star. We are fireflies pulsing dimly in the dark. We are here, and you are where you are. We are here, and you are where you are.
You heard in our scripture reading how the early disciples were left at the tomb, and then Alan Lewis's beautiful description of the disorientation, the loss, and where do we go from here type of feelings they must have been having. And it is in that context that we move into this part of the service where we'll just touch base with a few minutes, see what thoughts people are having. I've titled it, "The Death of God Lives On." The death of God certainly did occur 2,000 years ago. It's something that, in terms of people's impressions, occurs again and again throughout our lives. Where were you at this time? What should have been orderly and organized and planned and predictable according to all the rules of how life is supposed to work collapses. And then as our readings from Mark Pearson and Cheryl Lowry said, we wait here perhaps skeptical, perhaps angry, perhaps desperate, perhaps lonely. All we know of God is stripped away, crucified. Or as Nick Cave was saying, there is no order here, nothing can be planned. We are fireflies trapped in a little boy's hand. I am here, and you are where you are. Does that resonate for any of you here? Have you had times when you're sitting there saying, I am here and you are wherever you are, God? And are you able to relate to that time? Does anybody have any thoughts they would like to share about that? And if they're too difficult, you're not required to by any stretch. But this really is a congregational sharing time. Anybody have any thoughts or experiences that they think should be heard? I will also say we have another chat section later on in the bulletin with the identical same title and the identical subtitle, because for me, I always think of the intelligent thing 3 minutes after the conversation is done. so there will be another chance to I'm going to prattle on a little bit. And then if there's nothing further, we'll just move on with the service. But this concept of we have never been closer to God than when he was in the tomb. There are a lot of layers in that for me, but I'll just simply touch on one lightly for a moment. Karl Barth is famous for his far country theology. And he talked about how God goes all the way into the far country to rescue us. And the far country, in my perspective, is all the way to annihilation. God came so far to our side of the equation that God himself became subject even to death. And this out of a boundless desire to be close to us, so desperate to be close to us that God himself would risk sharing the death that we are subject to, so he could be that close to us. I'll step down and we'll just give it a pause for a few seconds, and then John, if it doesn't appear anybody has anything to say, then we can just start. It'll be Gay next. Gay, just when you're ready, if nobody's speaking.
This is part 5, Waiting with God. We know, even as we watch the sun give up the ghost in dereliction and despair, and see him buried in a tomb, alone and godless, we know that his Father did not and never could abandon him, remaining faithful to the Son, precisely at the point of direst absence from him. The Father is self-justified as a God of boundless love.
The Father Waits by Jim Robertson. Imagine the Father slipping quietly into Jesus' tomb on the Sabbath. As he does this, all of Israel is quiet, for the Sabbath means stillness. The Sabbath, his own command to be still on the Sabbath. Sabbath. Jerusalem is still. Even the Roman soldiers have reduced deployment, as there are almost no people on the streets. The city is still. The city waits. But the tomb is still. The tomb waits. But the Father, he can't wait for Sabbath to end, for his love for his Son exceeds even his own command to be still on the Sabbath. Sabbath. The Son is still. His heart stopped. His work finished. His life extinguished. The Son is still. The Son waits. Sabbath. The Father is still. He is silent in the enormity of a moment that has engulfed even God. At last, the Father is now still. At last, the Father waits. And then the Father speaks. The Father speaks to Jesus, pouring out his heart about what has passed between them. There are gushes and pauses, wonderings and assurances, sorrows and hopes. His Son is still. The Father is still. The Father waits. The Father speaks. There are joys and regrets, hurts and delights. His Son is still. The Father is still. The Father waits. The Father speaks. There are adorations and yearnings, but his Son is only still. The Father is still. The Father waits. The Father waits. His Son is still. The Father is still. The Father waits. The Son is still. The Father is still. The Father waits.
To be free, just wanna stay in the business of making you happy. Well, I'm just waiting for you, 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 waiting for you. Priest runs through the chapel, all the calendars are turning. A Jesus freak on the street says he is returning. Well, sometimes a little bit of faith can go a long, long way. Your soul is my anchor, never asked to be freed. Well, sleep now, take as long as you need, 'cause I'm just waiting for you, waiting
Part 6, we recall Christ's words. Have we here, in the story of God's godness in the grave of godlessness, a revelation of the mystery of love? Is love what it is, fertile, abundant, life-giving, and restoring, just because it gives itself away and is prepared to die? How could love really die as long as it surrenders itself, accepting sacrifice and death? For by that very acceptance, love asserts and fulfills itself, and thus outstrips with yet more life the destructiveness to which it yields.
You're speaking of the cross?
It's the treasure in a field.
The cross?
It's the pearl.
Then he said to the crowd, if any of you wants to be my follower, you must give up your own way, take up your cross daily, and follow me.
The kingdom of heaven is like a treasure that a man discovered hidden in a field.
If you try to hang on to your life, then you will lose it.
In his own excitement, he hid it again and sold everything he owned to get enough money to buy the field.
But if you give up your life for my sake, you will save it?
Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant on the lookout for choice pearls.
And what do you benefit if you gain the whole world, but are yourself lost or destroyed?
When he discovered a pearl of great value, he sold everything he owned and bought it. The cross.
Is the treasure in the field?
The cross.
Is the pearl?
If I could sail a galleon ship, long lonely ride across the sky, seek out mysteries while you sleep, and treasures money cannot buy. For you know I see you everywhere, a servant girl and empress. My galleon ship will fly and fall, fall and fly and fly and fall deep into your loveliness. And if we rise, my love, before the daylight comes, 1,000 galleon ships will sail ghostly round the morning sun. So many riders in the sky, the winds of longing in their sails, searching for the other side. And if we rise, my love, oh my darling, precious one, we'll stand and watch the galleon ships circle around the morning sun.
David has placed the white cloth on the lectern. We've reached the part of the service where we're close to sundown. At sundown, we enter into a new liturgical day. We are now in the early phases of Easter Sunday. The day rolls over at sundown. And so we don't yet celebrate Easter Sunday, but we acknowledge we've moved into that new day in God's calendar. John, would you be okay to bring up the picture of the garden tomb? And but before we move on to that, did anybody have any thoughts that came to them they want to share in terms of, yes, Laurier?
Yes, I'm not sure if this actually relates.
Oh, sorry, Laurier, would you mind coming to the mic? And two reasons. For people that are being live streamed, they'll be able to see your face and they'll be able to hear your voice.
Sure. I'm not sure if it quite relates to what you were saying or alluding to, Jim, but hold it up a little higher. Okay, sorry. When I was just thinking and kind of meditating on ongoing death, like you talked about the death of Christ remains, maybe just because as I get older, you get challenged by more and more things. And as I really think about them, meditate on them, I realize maybe I've got to change. Change long-held beliefs, change certain practices, change things that I really deeply believed and maybe even preached and taught to people, all of those things I was really firm on. But I realized that in order to keep growing and becoming who I'm called to be and who I'm meant to be, I have to let those things go. Otherwise, they're going to be stumbling blocks in becoming who I believe, meant and called to be. But there's still a part that feels like death. It feels like the rock that I'm standing on doesn't feel so rock-like at times.
The change can be frightening. And I guess I'll say it this way. We can draw great consolation into considering the change that God underwent. I have a little piece I chat about sometimes. I call it the theology of atoning defilement. But it goes like this, that God has, people have lost intimacy with God. And God is so desperate to restore intimacy, to bring people back into intimacy, that he calls a people and he gives the people guidance and assistance and suggestions even rules as to how they should be, how they should live, to try and close that gap and be more intimate with him so that their ways wouldn't cause greater distance. And that doesn't work, and then God goes to plan B, and he chooses to be intimate by becoming one of us. So he comes and becomes completely human, so human that he's subject even to death. And what's fascinating there is that in his previous guidance to people, death had been defiling. And now God allows himself to become subject to what he had previously declared to be defiling. So God lets his love trump even his own dogma, is how I sum it up. But the call to change on us, I think, is as much. Are we willing to go that far into the far country? Are we willing to get that proximate, that close to what we think would be defiling, to be intimate with others? It's the picture here. I just wanted to skip back because this relates to the cross as the pearl. In 2005, we were doing a series of Friday night Lenten services here, and there was a wonderful artist in the congregation named Betty Jess, and every night we did special communion and special rituals woven in with the communion. And the night that Betty was, 3 nights before she was on, people came up for communion, they came back from communion, and they laid random pieces of rice paper down on a piece of paper. And then Betty took it away to finish that piece and brought it back 3 weeks later in the state where it was. In my own personal life, that old bridge illustration about the cross bridging the chasm, I had gussied it up a bit, and I said, yeah, there's three crosses. There's the red one, the cross of Christ's salvation. There's the blue one, the cross of our salvation, and there's a black one that's the cross we have to bear. And then over time I came to realize that the cross was the treasure in the field. And then 3 weeks after we'd made our contributions, Betty brings us back. She unveiled it to us as part of our evening, and there was the gold cross laying in the pitcher. And I hadn't ever talked to Betty about that, but I was just stunned. But I think that's really in some ways sums it up. The cross really is the treasure that as we seek to be anthropos epitaphios, as we seek to be those who bear the image of the crucified Christ, that treasure, that process through the cross that we are called to. Does anybody have anything they'd like to add to that or say about that? Okay, we'll resume.
Some dreams are dangerous, urgent in their haunting, perilous, and yet precious for what they mean to the soul. Their presence is hidden for reasons of safety, reasons that only the dreamer would know. But when the time has come to touch the aching deep, the regret and the covering loosen their hold. Called out of the forgotten, the almost abandoned, courage emerges from somewhere unknown. With the soul now listening to the long-lost bravery, a messenger comes and beckons the heart. Do you have the courage to bring forth the treasures that are hidden within you? For it is the end of yourself, where all the marvelous begins. Now is the time. Breathe it in. You must come and cross over. For something buoyant and beautiful is pressing up. With my passion now informed, I commit myself to choose curiosity over fear again and again, constantly being in a state of unfolding, constantly saying yes to my collaboration with the mystery of inspiration and the improbable logic of perennial dreams.
Horses are broken free from the fields. They are horses of love, their manes full of fire. They are parting the cities, those bright burning horses. And everyone is hiding, and no one makes a sound. Side and I'm holding your hand. Ride horses of wonder springing from your burning things as they are. The horses are just horses and their manes aren't full of fire. The fields are just fields and there ain't no Lord. And everyone is hidden and everyone is cruel. There's no shortage of tyrants and no shortage of fools. And the little white shape dancing at the end of the hall is just a wish that time can't dissolve at all. It don't mean we can't believe in something, and anyway, my baby's coming back now on the next train. I can hear the whistle blowing, I can hear the mighty roar, I can hear the horses prancing in the pastures of the Lord. Oh, the train is coming, and I'm standing here to see, and it's bringing my baby right back to me. Well, there are some things it's hard to explain, but my baby's coming home now on the 5:30 train.
This is part 8, Invitation to Resurrection, written by Alan Lewis. It is a very different God and a very different power that we have discovered in the story of divine self-emptying. God's capacity for weakness, the ability, without loss of godness, to suffer and perhaps to die. This is the triune God of Jesus, fulfilled, majestic, glorified through self-expenditure in the lowly ignominy of our farthest country. There is power here, resurrecting, death-defying, devil-defeating, but it is the power of love defying human expectations, which flowers in contradiction and negation, allowing sin its increase and giving death its day of victory, but only the more abundantly to outstrip both in the fecundity of grace and life, to live in the face of death, an Easter Saturday existence, trusting in the weak but powerful love of the crucified and buried God, is itself to be objective, turned outward, away from self-reliance and self-preoccupation, away from our own determination to conquer death, which is in fact self-defeating and destructive. Instead, we are invited bravely and with frankness to admit our own defenselessness against the foe, entrust ourselves and destiny to the love of God, which in its defenselessness proves both creative and victorious.
forest amongst the butterflies and the fireflies and the burning horses and the flaming trees, as a spiral of children climb up to the sun, waving goodbye to you and goodbye to me, as the past pulls away and the future begins. I say goodbye to all that as the future rolls in, like a wave, and the past with its savage undertow. Let's go. Light up the night, oh the night. But the stars hang from threads and blink off one by one. And it isn't any fun, no it isn't any fun, to be standing here alone with nowhere to be, with a man mad with grief and on each side a thief, and everybody hanging from a tree, and everybody hanging from a tree. Butterflies and the screaming horses and your bright green eyes, so beautiful are your bright green eyes, so beautiful.
You are all invited to stand, and I'd like to read over you, and then you are welcome but not required to. When I speak of breathing in, you can raise your arms up. When I speak of breathing out, you can let your arms down. Breathe in the goodness of God. Hold it, savor it, delight in it. Breathe out the goodness of God to all those around you. Breathe in the wisdom of God. Hold it, savor it, delight in it. Breathe out the wisdom of God to all those around you. Breathe in the resurrection of God. Hold it, savor it, delight in it. Breathe out the resurrection of God to all those around you. Go in peace to love and serve the Lord. Breathe his peace on all those around you.